Christian parenting.
Trauma affects and essentially rewires how the brain interprets the world around you. However, with the proper tools, children and adults can rewire their brains. They can learn to recognize, regulate, and choose better behavior. And that, parents, is a big part of what you're doing. You are helping them to become successful adults who can thrive. Welcome back, families, to another episode of the Called to Love podcast. Each week, we dive into the practical, the clinical, and always, most importantly, the biblical aspects of the adoption and foster care callings. It's hard to believe, but we are in week 4 of a summer series that I am calling How to Promote Emotional and Behavioral Regulation in Your Family. And before we get started today, can I just be real with you as a Called to Love family? This week has been a really tough one. There's been a lot of demands, a lot of extra on the brain as back to school checklists and to-dos have overwhelmed my phone and my email. Lots of planning for fall content, finalizing interviews, final edits on a book proposal that's headed to a publisher. That's nerve-wracking. Would you be praying for me with that? In the midst of writing these episodes to share with you, I have had to learn alongside you and choose to utilize my own regulation tools that I have found to be effective for me personally, not even everybody else in my house, but for me. And so just yesterday, for an example, I had to speak in front of a local DHS office, lead a meeting with my team after the fact, finish back to school shopping for 2 of my kids, take my son for his second learner's permit attempt, started tackling a mountain of laundry that we had left over from a weekend lake trip, started to plan a back to school dinner that we host every year for our kids and our youth staff at the church. All things that I absolutely love doing and I'm grateful to be able to do. But when it all comes together, sometimes a moment just hits where it just feels like too much. And that was me. I started to recognize all of my feelings of overwhelm. For me personally, I get a heavy chest. I was on the verge of tears. There were just checklists swirling around in my brain so severely that my brain was just short-circuiting. I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I wanted to just avoid my most treasured people and just desperately needed some sense of peace and order to just recollect my thoughts and get some balance and some peace in my home and my brain. There were school supplies covering my dining room table. There were grocery bags that were covering all my kitchen counters. There were baskets of laundries and piles all lined up outside the hallway of my laundry room. And my phone was constantly blowing up with messages that were just adding to my to-dos. And I had to just take a moment and pray and say, Lord, help. I need a moment. I don't want to react. I don't want to respond. I am in the middle of teaching our listeners about how to regulate and not blow their tops and not explode and to model that in front of their kids. And boy, did I get tested and all of that. So I had to tell myself, start slow, do one thing, focus on what helps me to calm down. So little by little, I just started to task. I stopped thinking about all the things and I just thought about one thing at a time. I swept the floors. I cleaned off the counters. I started to chisel away at the clutter around me. Clutter is a huge trigger for me. I started a load of laundry, put away the dishes. I lit a candle. I started playing some instrumental music that was just peaceful. And I had to remind myself multiple times when my kids would come in and out and I didn't know if they were going to hit me with another demand or another something or bring a friend in from the neighborhood. All things I love, again, but in that moment it was too much. So I had to remind myself, Summer, fix your face when the kids would walk in so as to not make them feel unwelcome or unloved. I had to choose, like really force myself to do this because honestly, in that moment, I just wanted to be somewhere remote where no humans could find me. I mean, I needed that time. But with that, I wanted to share all of that to remind you that if that's you right now in this season, you're not alone. And these tools that I am teaching and have continued to teach over these last several weeks, they're not just something for you to utilize for your kids. Sometimes these tools are for you and they benefit you not only to practice them for your self-regulation, but also for your family to see you modeling these regulation techniques in the daily craziness that makes up our parenting life. So with that being said, on today's episode, this week I'm going to talk about the 3 C's of regulation. Specifically, I'm going to dive into cold, counting, and choices. And friends, this week I've had to use all 3 of these. So let's get started as we dive into these 3 practical tools for regulation. The first one is cold. Why cold? Well, cold actually causes a quick shock to your system and your central nervous system, and it forces the brain to pause and to process other information. So if you're in the middle of an escalation and your child is fixated on something that has just got them scared or frustrated or angry, whatever that might be, by applying cold to them will actually force their brain to pause the intensity of focus on whatever that trigger is, and will force them to start to compute the other input, the sensory input that they're experiencing. So especially if you have a child who has escalated beyond response to your prompts, like past the point of no return. Y'all all know what I'm talking about. You've utilized that HALT method we talked about in an earlier episode. You've tried to get your child to breathe, which is my number one recommended tool, is breathing. That's the best thing to regulate. If your child is beyond that, they are red-faced, they are so escalated, their lid is flipped, here's what you can do. If you are at home, you can go to your freezer and grab an ice pack and just place it gently on the back of your child's neck, there at the base of their head. In moments of extreme escalation, cold forces that strong sensory experience that makes the brain redirect its energy and focus on the sensation, thus short circuiting that escalated response. It just gives a little bit of a break and a breather to allow you time in to help them to refocus and go, I'm here. Let's start to de escalate instead of continuing to escalate. If you have littles, you might consider purchasing the little ice packs that have little friendly faces, bright colors, maybe an animal that they like, so that their minds start to associate that ice pack with something that's friendly, that you are bringing in to help them when they are upset. So, for example, if it's a bear, if it's a pink smiley face, if it's a princess, you can go, okay, I see you're really upset right now. I think I'm going to go get the princess ice pack, or I'm going to go get the bear ice pack, whatever that might look like. Your child, especially when they're younger, can associate that with something that is a tool to help them. And that can also help with the escalated response. And they may very well get to the point of asking you for that item before you even know that they need it. Or as you are seeing the escalation, they may beat you to the punch and go, I really need my bear right now, or I really need my frozen princess, or whatever that needs to look like. That's just a practical tool as you were talking about applying that cold to kind of re-shock and recenter their focus in their system. The next best option, if you are not at home, for example, or if it's just easier access for you, is an ice cold drink that they have to use a straw with. This provides that cold sensation as they drink from the cold drink, but it also forces the breathing exercises that we've talked about as the number one helper in helping them to regulate. So they have to breathe through their nose when drinking from a straw, and then they're getting that cold sensation, so the brain is sensing something else, and it's forcing them to kind of reset and de-escalate that issue that they are having. Also, there's going to be an extreme reaction there because the body temperature often elevates as you're upset, as you're frustrated, your temperature goes up. So then when you take in that cold drink, then that's really going to be an extreme sensory experience for the brain to stop and go, wait, I have to process more than one thing. Another option for cold is a popsicle or a freeze pop. A lot of times I like the little freeze pops because they're in those plastic little pouches. You can just rip the top off and it's ready to go. It's a small portion. It's identified as a positive experience, a treat in our kids' brains, and it can still accomplish the same de-escalation goal. Preferably, I kind of harp on this, but preferably dye-free with more natural fruit juice. I have left an example for you in today's show notes of a brand that I really like, and those are healthier and a really great option, and they're quick go-tos. Now, disclaimer on this when it comes to offering treats. It is not helpful to use this option as bribery or leverage for better behavior. For example, saying to your child when they're screaming, their lid is flipped, they are completely escalated beyond the point of no return, raising your voice to say things like, if you don't calm down, you're not going to get a popsicle, or if you don't stop that, or if you stop that right now, I'll give you a popsicle. Like, hey, let's bribe you essentially to de-escalate your behavior. And here's why I want to caution you against this. We don't want to confuse our kids, because the ultimate goal of de-escalation is certainly better behavior. But first and foremost, remember that the goal is to teach them healthy coping skills and respectful communication for life. So you're playing the long game, moms and dads. And so we don't want to just pass something sweet and pass a reward to them so that they just de-escalate and you move on so you don't have to deal with it. This is where you're in the trenches, in the nitty-gritty, and you are building on skill sets, and your child might respond to it quickly, or it may take a lot of repetitive practice in dealing with escalated behaviors based on their personality, based on their level of trauma. And remember this too, that your kids feel safe and will build trust with you when you consistently display that you have a plan and a safe response for anything that they throw your way. So you're not escalating with them, you're not elevating with them, and you can handle whatever they're throwing. You've got a plan and you've got tools that you're ready to employ. If you are not displaying that healthy authority by communicating to your kids with a calm and confident tone of voice and body posture, your kids can easily learn to manipulate you for the reward, and the skill that you're trying to build will be delayed or not accomplished at all. So instead, if you want to offer this popsicle, I know I'm harping on this popsicle, but I'm just trying to give you guys an example and a little bit more of a perspective so that you don't get tripped up in this. If you want to offer this as an option as a cold treat, I would suggest this type of a scenario. If your child is severely escalated and you are able to grab the popsicle while remaining in their view, get the popsicle, bend down to their level with kind eyes and a soft voice, letting them see the treat, and say something along the lines of, I have this special treat to help you calm down. Let's first take some deep breaths together. If the child complies with you, praise their progress. Great job. Would you like to enjoy your treat now? So you've already captured their attention by triggering their brain. Ooh, I have a reward if I calm down and I focus in on what my caregiver is offering to me. So that's step one right now. Then you're able to offer that reward, and bonus, the cold of it is going to help with the de-escalation. As they're wrapping their mouths around that little popsicle and they're sucking it in, they're biting, they're breathing through their nose. Do you see where I'm going with all of this? It's multiple tools all in one. So that's why the popsicle is so helpful. But we want to make sure that we are rewarding them when they are making progress. If they keep screaming and they're just demanding the treat without showing you an improvement in their behavior or their choices or their self-control, you can calmly say, that's okay. I'll put this away for now and we can try again later. Let me encourage you, stay strong and don't reward fits and disrespectful behavior. You can still remain in control and you can make progress in this. And it does take a lot of reps, so hang in there, guys. Hey families, Summer here. Sorry to interrupt the show, but I wanted to make sure that you have subscribed. By subscribing to the Call to Love podcast, that means you will get notified with every new episode each week, and it helps me to know that you are here and a part of the Call to Love community. You can also leave my podcast a review and rate it, which helps others to find the show. This podcast is growing thanks to you, and we hope to continue reaching families who are looking for resources as they live out their own call to love. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the conversation. Okay, number 2 for the 3 C's of regulation is counting. I've recently read that it is best practice in any interaction or conversation with someone, adults included, is to pause at least 2 seconds before responding when you're in a conversation, just to give that person time to know that I am actually honed in and focused on you and not just ready to jump into what I want to say or what input I want to offer. So the same is true when we're dealing with our kids in moments of escalation, recognizing the signs in our bodies when we sense escalation, even on ourselves. Being conscious of the fact that if left to our own devices and a lack of self control, things will be said and done that are hard to take back and to repair. So think about that even as we're modeling in our adult communication and relationships. With our kids, it's the same way. So establish this discipline of counting before your child is escalated. Make this a part of just normal conversation, especially as you know in a season that you're being intentional to try to build these de escalation tools with your child, and then model it for your child to see. It may even seem silly, but actually humorous situations stick in their brains better than just teaching at the moments. And so you might come up with a really silly scenario where mom or dad could get really escalated over something, just pick something random. And then you go, oh, but I'm going to use my counting skills. And then, but the children watching you do that, actually, it's amazing how well that sticks in their brains. And you can recall that in moments of escalation. So keep in mind that the counting tool is helpful for more mild to moderate escalation. If they have really severely flipped their lids and they are just kind of past that point of no return, where it's going to take several steps for you to get them to the point where they're hearing you, they're cooperating with you, counting's not going to be your number one go-to. Mild to moderate escalation, counting is a helpful tool. First of all is the countdown from 5 method. And this is a really great thing. Same thing as we were talking about with the cold, forcing the brain to focus on something else besides what is escalating the child. So you can practice this when the child is regulated and ready to listen and hone in so that it creates that muscle memory, again, that we've talked about throughout the multiple episodes of remembering, oh, we've done this before. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. So ask your kids if they're kind of starting to get agitated or escalated, you're seeing this, it's going mild to moderate, just ask them in the moment. Tone of voice is everything. Presence, body language is everything, parents. I cannot stress that enough. Hey, little so and so, what are 5 things that you see right now? And hone in. Don't be distracted. Don't be on your phone. Don't be elsewhere where your child can tell that you're really not paying attention to what they're doing and what they're experiencing. Sit with them as they're pointing. I see a bug flying. I see a flower blowing in the breeze. I see green grass. I see all these things, and praise them when they give you those 5. Okay, fantastic. What are 4 things that you can touch all around them? List whatever you might can think. You guys get the point. 3 things you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Always sitting with them and participating with them, praising them with every step that they take towards calm and compliance at your suggestions. Countdown from 5: see, touch, hear, smell, and taste. Okay, the next practical one is to count their breaths. This is something that you can do together. Again, breathing is such an important tool as you're talking about de-escalation, but if you make it a game, if you make it a normal rhythm, something that you are used to doing together, okay, I'm here with you. You're upset. I can see that. Let's breathe together. Or would you like to watch me breathe and you can count my breaths and then we'll take turns? If you can start with 5 to 10 breaths, that's really great progress. Maybe alternate. And before you know it, that de escalation has happened and you're able to go back to what you were doing. One of my other favorites is what I call roller coaster counting. And this is where it'd be beneficial for those of you who are listening. I'll try to talk you through it. But if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to hold my hand up. You're going to hold your hand up like you're showing a high five. And you're going to take the pointer finger of your opposite hand and you're just going to run your finger along the tips of the hands, top of the thumb, and down like a roller coaster. Back up to the top pointer finger and down like a roller coaster, and so forth and so on. And why this is really helpful is you're counting every time you get to the top of a fingertip. So obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they're also adding in additional sensory input. So they're feeling that tickle of their finger going up and down. They're thinking about something else besides what's escalating them. They're counting with you, and that becomes play and fun, which is one of the key elements of being able to disarm frustrated behaviors. Also, a simple Google search of counting activities will help you, but I wanted to share some of these really basic and practical tools that you can take anywhere and do anywhere. You don't have to have anything extra, and they're easy to recall. Okay, number 3 is choices. I'm going to break this down in 2 different ways for you as we're wrapping up this episode today. I touched on this in the first episode of this series, but I wanted to revisit and get into a little bit more specifics about how to go about the choices conversations. Now, choices are such a helpful tool, again, for mild to moderate escalation. If you are in the heat of battle, a power struggle, the child has flipped their lids, they're not able to hear you communicate, this is not your go-to again. But if you're in that mild to moderate, you're seeing the escalation, you're anticipating escalation, choices are a really great tool. Many, if not most, children tend to become argumentative and combative when they are escalated. This can lead to the easy trap of power struggles with our kids as we work to get them calm and compliant in certain situations. On top of that, many of our kids who've experienced trauma of any kind tend to have what's called a negative bias. This means that their brain is automatically going to go to the negative or the worst case scenario in their minds in any given situation. When a child is escalated, fear trumps everything and can easily take over. And what seems like combative disrespect is actually a panicked cry for safety and control over a situation that scares them. So I want to give you that overview and that perspective, especially if you find yourself in a lot of power struggles with your kids and they are escalated and they're arguing back with you, and any solution that you offer is just met with some kind of a negative rebuttal, They're not going to listen no matter how positive you try to be. They're going to go the extreme opposite. It can feel very personal. It feels very disrespectful for you as the caregiver, especially as you're trying to teach respect. This has been a huge one in my household. And what I have had to learn is understanding that fear and a need for control is driving that behavior. So giving choices helps you to avoid or lessen that power struggle, whether it's real or imagined for your child, and it still accomplishes what you need your child to do. Simple things like they may be escalated over going to school because ultimately what you don't know is they are afraid of rejection by their peers, or maybe they're facing a stressful situation like a test or a speech that they have to do in front of everybody. They're insecure about it, but they're fighting you over getting dressed for the day, or brushing their teeth, or brushing their hair, or making their bed. They may also just struggle with a change in routine or an introduction to the structure of your home that's new to them, a schedule that's new altogether. Remember, a lot of our kids that are coming to us from foster care, the vast majority, if not all, are coming from a complete lack of structure, a lack of order in the home. And so chaos makes them really uncomfortable. And so they're looking for control. They're looking to battle it out. And they're also testing to see how you're going to display confident authority. So it might look like they're fighting you over what to eat for lunch or dinner or what they're going to wear. But really and truly, it comes back to a lot of those root fears in their hearts. So I'm going to come back to that healthy display of authority again and again, because it is key for us to remember to remain calm. Let them know that you are not rattled by their attempts to battle against you, and let them know, hey, you know what? You have choices. Now, I'm going to say this too. Giving choices is very helpful, but not too many. Because remember, if their brain is escalating, they can't compute as well. They're not going to be as logical. That logical part of their brain's not going to be operating. So I would recommend 2 choices, definitely not more than 3. You might even give the option of, okay, as mom or as dad, I'm going to give you 2 choices, and then I am open to your feedback if you'd like to add a third one, and then we'll talk about it together and we'll compromise. But that gives them a sense of power. It gives them a little bit more control. This helps you to initially try to diffuse escalation, and then you're letting them know, hey, I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to help, and I ultimately want to see you succeed, but we still got to get the job done, whatever that might look like: getting dressed, brushing teeth, choosing their food, because ultimately none of these are optional. They are essential part of good care for you as the parent to provide for your child. But you're giving your child ownership through choices and how they go about the task that you're giving them. And this also gives them some confidence and a sense of control over their world that feels out of control, but you're also accomplishing what you needed them to do in the first place. It can seem a little bit exhausting, but as you build this rhythm where you understand, like, there is a level of respect, there is no compromise on accomplishing the goal, but let's talk about how we can do that. Now, second of all, I want to talk to you about the importance of teaching your kids from a young age that they do have a choice in how they act. This is going to go against most mainstream opinions, especially in the secular mental health sphere and even in the faith based mental health sphere. I want to be clear. Yes, trauma affects and essentially rewires how the brain interprets the world around you. However, with the proper tools, children and adults can rewire their brains. They can learn to recognize, regulate, and choose better behavior. And that, parents, is a big part of what you're doing. You are helping them to become successful adults who can thrive. To use trauma as a crutch or an excuse for poor behavior is not doing our children, our families, or our society any favors. So, as you begin to build skills through trust and repetition, and when it is developmentally appropriate, I want to encourage you: place the ownership of choices on your child. They can handle it. Do what I call holding them capable. These children are capable of learning, and science has proven over and over again that neural pathways can heal, they can rewire, new habits can be learned, and tools can be built upon. So, as you begin to build skills through trust and repetition, and when it is developmentally appropriate, I want to encourage you to place the ownership of choices on your child. You're there alongside them to help them make good choices, but ultimately help them understand that they have the power to choose, and they have the power to choose good. Hold them capable. Here's what I mean. During teaching moments, either in conversation, in regulated moments, or after a moment where they have escalated and you have de-escalated when it's appropriate, say to your children, You have the ability to make good choices. I believe in you. I have seen you do well at this. You have learned some great ways to control your anger, to control your words, your attention span. Fill in the blank for whatever that struggle might be for your child specifically. Let them know I am here to help you whenever you need me. Also, let them know I don't expect you to be perfect because we all mess up, but you are now old enough to understand that you do not have to behave this way in order for me to hear you or to get what you need. And then call it out, families. When they make a good choice, praise their hard work to break hard habits. It's not easy, especially if they've lived in a cycle of dysfunction and have not come with any of these tools. You are starting from scratch and you are building them up. And that is our key role as parents. Friends, there is so much more that we could go into, but for now, this is enough to get you started with the 3 C's of regulation. As always, I am so grateful for you taking the time to listen, for your feedback, for your questions. I would love to hear how these are going for you. If you have chosen some of these tools that I have shared with you over the last 4 episodes, how's it going? What questions do you have? And how can we continue to serve you as the Called to Love family? Next week, we will wrap up this series and then we will dive into some fantastic fall content that I cannot wait to share with you. In the meantime, if you have not already, I would be so grateful if you would take a moment to follow the show, to give a review. This allows more people to find us, to be blessed by it, for them to join the Call to Love community. And I am so grateful for all of your support. Friends, until next time, go live out your own call to love. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Called to Love today. I love to hear from listeners, and so I would love to connect with you to hear your stories and answer your questions right here on the show. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, send me a direct message, or send me an email at the link in today's show notes. I pray you have been encouraged by today's episode to walk in faith and continue to embrace your own call to love. Until next time, blessings, sweet friends.